Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be making a tutorial on how to cut and sew this basket yoke, asymmetric basket yoke. So if this is something you like to learn, please stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So this is the fabric we are going to be using for this tutorial, so I'll set that aside for now, and I've gone ahead to draft the front and back pattern of this outfit. And I'm actually so sorry because I thought it was so visible while I was making it. I didn't know that it's not that clear. So if you don't know how to draft a basic bodice pattern, please, I have a video on the channel. I have linked it in the description box below where you can go and watch how to draft a basic bodice pattern. So this is the bodice pattern that we are going to be using. So remember, the front panel is always on fold, so I'm just going to go ahead now and open it up because we are making an asymmetric basket yoke. Assume it's just a normal straight basket yoke, we can just cut it like that, but because it's asymmetric we have to open the pattern. So after opening up the pattern, this is how we are just going to make our asymmetric yoke. So I'm just going to go ahead to the shoulder. So the shoulder width is 4¼ of an inch. So I'm just going to mark 2¼ of an inch. So after marking that 2¼ of an inch, I'm just going to mark it down to the armhole. If you have curve rule, you can go ahead and use your curve rule to connect it to the armhole. I have curve rule, but I just want to use a free hand, so that's why I'm just drawing it like so. So I'm just going to connect it to where I want it to be on the armhole. So this depends on how low or how high you want your yoke to be. Remember, it's a basket yoke, so if you don't want your cleavage to show, don't make it too low. So this is actually our yoke now, so we are just going to go ahead and cut it out. So this is our yoke. I've gone to label the yoke. I'm sorry, I didn't know my camera was messing up this thing. So now I'm going to take out a new pattern paper. So this new pattern paper that we have brought out, we are going to assume that it's our fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin the yoke to the pattern paper. So we have gone ahead to pin the yoke to the pattern paper. Remember, I said we are going to assume the new pattern paper is our fabric. So all the allowances that we are supposed to add to our fabric when we are cutting out our yoke on the fabric, that's what we are going to add now. So we are going to add allowance to the down part where we are going to join it together to the remaining side of the front panel. So I'm going to go ahead to add half an inch allowance to the shoulder as well, because that's the allowance we are going to use to stitch the front panel to the back panel at the shoulder point. So after adding all the allowances to the yoke, the next thing is to cut it out the way I'm using my hands to trace them out. So guys, I've gone ahead to cut it out off camera. So the next thing I'm going to do is to fold in the midpoints the way I'm folding it now. Remember, we are going to remove the yoke part, so I'm just going to notch it at the down part. We are going to be joining it to the down part of the front panel. So I'm going to remove the pins on the pattern paper, then I'm going to discard the first yoke. So now this is the yoke that we'll be working on. So now that we are ready to work on our yoke, the next thing is to start marking out our basket. So to mark out our basket, you can use whatever inches you want, but for me I'm going to be using the distance, the width of this ruler, and that's about 1¼ of an inch. So the distance between each lines, like the distance between one line and the other, is going to be the width of the ruler. So you can decide to use half an inch, you can decide to use an inch, you can decide to use 1 inch less quarter. So whatever measurement you are comfortable with, that's what you should use. But for this tutorial, I'm using 1¼ of an inch. So guys, I'm done marking out the first line of the basket, and as you can see, it's looking also uniform. So the next thing is to start on the other side and draw a diagonal line to the first line that we drew. So like we did for the first lines, we are going to be using the width of our ruler as measurement for the distance between each lines. So after marking everything, this is how it looks. As you can see, it's already looking so beautiful even before adding the rope. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut the rope we are going to use. So guys, I've gone ahead to cut the rope, and for this rope I'm using bias strip. So I went ahead to fold my bias strip into two. So, and I stitch it down from the beginning to the end of this bias strip. So if you don't want to use bias strip, you can actually use your fabric. So to make use of your fabric, let me quickly take you through how you are going to do it. So you bring out your fabric, and you are going to mark 2 inches from the beginning of the fabric to whatever length you are using. So that it's advisable to make it as long as possible, because you don't know how much length you are going to use. So but because I'm using this for reference purpose, I'm just going to use a small length. So this is our 2 inches that I've cut out. So let me make, this is the length I'm using for example. So I'm going to fold it in on one side, you fold it in on the other side as well. Then you are going to close it up the way I'm closing it up now and stitch it down. If you don't understand, let me explain again. So you close it on one side like so, you close it on the other side like this, the same way I'm doing it now. Then you're going to close it up and take it to your machine and stitch it down. So that's how you're going to form the rope if you want to use fabric. But I'm not using fabric, I'm using bias strip. So I'm going to start, I'm going to go to my machine and start sewing the strip to the lines that I've made. So I'm going to start with that first line that we made like so. So this is the way I'm going to be adding it to my fabric. I'll bring it back once I'm done. So guys, I'm done with one part of the line. As you can see, it's looking so beautiful. I don't know whether it's different from the other lines, but it's actually different. So this is the back pattern, and this is how it looks on the right side. So now I'm going to start with the other lines. So I'm just going to place it like so and go and sew it. So when I finish sewing it, I'll bring it back to show you guys. So I'm done sewing the two sides, and as you can see, it's already looking so neat and beautiful. So at this point, other people can like to remove the paper, but to make things easier for us, I'm not going to remove the paper. So now I'm just going to tape the neck with my bias tape. So that's what I'm going to do now. So after taping the neck, this is what it looks like. It's time to connect it to the remaining part of the front panel. So this is the remaining part of the front panel. I've gone ahead to cut it on actual fabric, and I added half an inch allowance to the top of the front panel as well. So now I'm just going to align the notches together. I made the notch on the fabric, and remember we made the notch on the pattern paper. So I'm just going to align them together. Then I'm just going to start sewing from the shoulder. So however, I'm not going to start sewing yet because I'm going to use lining for this outfit. So I'm going to bring in my lining. So after bringing in the lining, I'm going to align the notch on the lining as well to the other notches. So I'm just going to place it on top of it like this. So this is how it's going to look. The pattern paper is going to be in between the lining and the fabric so that it will look neat at that joining parts. So this is how it's looking. You see the way I'm arranging it. I'm so sorry, I didn't know that I've taken my hands away from camera. So yeah, see the way I'm arranging it. The pattern paper is in between the lining and the fabric. So we are actually going to sew it down like that till we reach the end of the pattern paper. So guys, this is how it looks after sewing it together. Remember, I had to place the right side of the fabric and the right side of the pattern paper to face each other. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and as you can see, the pattern paper was in between the lining and the fabric. So then I went ahead to flip the lining and I top stitched towards the lining side, and this is the reason why it's looking so flat, both on the wrong side and on the right side, and it's looking so neat on both sides as well. So the next thing we are going to do is to remove our paper. So please carefully remove the paper so you are not going to remove the stitches that you used to sew the paper to the buyers. So I'll do that off camera now, and I'll bring it back to show us the final look. So guys, this is the final look of our basket yoke. You can see it's looking so neat and beautiful. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Please do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.